there, friend. Welcome or welcome back. Are you ready to talk about setting? Setting is one of 4 elements of a story. Those elements are character, setting of course, problem, and solution. The setting of a story is when the story takes place or where the story takes place. Are you ready to look at the 3 elements of setting, time, place, and environment? The first element is time. When does your story take place? Time can be a specific day, time, or date, or general, like in the fall or in the past. So, what is an example of a specific time? Let's look at that. It could be right before dinner. Your story might take place specifically first thing in the morning. Now, let's look at some general examples of time. Like your story might take place during medieval times. Or your story could take place on the first day of fall. The second element of setting is place. Where do the events of your story happen? Your story might take place in a specific location or even a fictional location. An example of a specific location is that your story might take place in Paris, France. Your story might also specifically take place in a playground in your neighborhood. A fictional location is a location that can't really happen. For example, your story might take place in your house on the moon. Now we know that's fictional because people can't actually live on the moon. Or your story might take place in an underwater fish hotel. Do you think that's real? And the third element of setting is environmental. That is the geographic, cultural, or weather-related elements of your story. An example of a geographical element of setting is that your story could take place on the beach. Your story also might take place in the mountains. Now let's look at an example of a cultural element of your story. Your story might take place during the county fair. Your story might also take place on Super Bowl Sunday. That is a specifically American cultural event. Now let's look at examples of how weather helps us know about the setting of a story. Your story might take place in the middle of a snowstorm. Or your story might take place on the hottest day of the year. So, how does a better understanding of setting help you be more engaged with a story? It helps you by giving you clues to understand what the characters are experiencing. For example, characters are cold if the story takes place during a snowstorm. So if you know a story takes place during the medieval times, and you know that during that time there was no electricity, even though the story doesn't say it, you will know the characters are living without electricity. Now take a look at this picture. What are 3 words you might use to describe the setting? Maybe nighttime, maybe outside, or maybe by a river. What are 3 words you would use to describe this picture? You might say it's inside, or in a warehouse, or maybe in a factory. Listen to this description and see if it paints a picture in your mind of the setting. My mom and I live in a beautiful red house with a great big yard. One night we went outside and decided to play in the middle of a snowstorm. We threw snowballs and built snowmen, all by the light of our giant tree. Does the picture in your mind look something like this? There were several clues that helped you paint that picture, like the fact that there was a tall lighted tree, the yard of a cozy red house, that it was nighttime, and that it was snowing. I hope you've learned a little bit about why important to a story. If you want to learn more about story elements, like and subscribe to this channel.